Hey guys, I wanted to make a little post for you today about stress and specifically how your past behaviours can end up triggering how you respond to things in your present life, and ultimately how this can affect your mental health and well-being. So there's lots of different areas of your health that make up this kind of picture of you. It's not just your physical fitness that plays a part. It is not solely the physical fitness though. There's various different aspects. So you've got your environmental health, and so what actually surrounds you, your emotional health, your existential health. So how you see yourself in the world, what kind of purpose you see yourself in. Your social health and your support system, and your mental health as well. So ideally all of these different areas of your this idea of your complete deep health, they would all be in balance, and you'd be functioning at your individual optimum level. And that is rarely the case, really. There's usually some sort of stresses in your life that can send one or more of these areas out of balance. So how you cope with stress is often due to memories that you have had from the past and past behaviours. Comparing situations to similar things that have happened, and taking these learnt behaviours into your present life, so you're kind of predicting the outcome, and using a way that is familiar to you and that you have understood in the past to control how you're thinking, how you cope with these stresses. So there can be lots of different types of stresses in your life. You might have these very big, consuming, overwhelming stresses that seem like very significant events, and there may also be smaller stresses that don't seem to have the same worth and significance, and by themselves you may be able to cope with them very well, and they don't seem to have any sort of effect, and maybe even a few together doesn't really have that same effect as well. So it's possible to have multiple small stresses that are going on in your life at any one time. So I personally have had lots of different small stresses in my life, and I have definitely seen them as insignificant. I've kind of compared them and labelled them to other situations that I have considered to be of greater worth and greater validity, and sometimes I have been able to cope with this absolutely fine, and it hasn't affected me in a detrimental way. I have also, though, taken this mindset through me, and it has manifested into a place where I actually took all of the validity and worth out of every stressful situation that I was in. So whether that was big or small, it didn't really matter. I kind of stripped it of any sort of worth, and didn't want to, or didn't know how to cope with any sort of additional support. So I actually put myself in a very isolating situation by doing this. It was not a particularly healthy manifest that I allowed to happen. So I kind of removed myself from this support network that can be so useful and so beneficial to your mental health, and I put myself in a very protective place where I built up a lot of barriers, and ultimately I isolated myself so much that it became quite difficult to actually break down any barriers. So part of this mindset that I was in. It was comparing these stresses to other situations, and there are so many different situations. People go through so many different things personally, and the worth and the value that they put on their own stresses is very unique to them. And so being in a place where you're comparing your stresses and how you are able to cope with something compared to somebody else is quite an inaccurate system that you are grading yourself on, and it can have these detrimental effects on your mental health. So I just wanted to bring this into discussion and what kind of validity you put on your own stresses and the worth you see on them. Because, people go through these different situations and they're all very personal to everybody. And so if you have been in a situation where you have actually devalued your stresses and taken all of the worth out of them, there's a lot of negative self-talk and subconscious language going on, and it goes a bit further than the initial thought of just not wanting to burden someone with anything that you were struggling with. And so it can be like a sense of unworthiness and not wanting to trouble people. It can be a fear there that you're putting in place where you don't actually want to face any of these obstacles and these challenges that you are creating yourself, and you don't want to seek the support because it is scary and it's a vulnerable place to be, and seeking extra help and support puts you in this greater place of stress and vulnerability and exposure. It's important to have this social network, and there can be enormous benefits that you can have to your mental health if you are able to find social support and not put yourself in this point of isolation and protectiveness. So it doesn't really matter what your stresses are if you have taken the validity out of them, and if you have lost the ability to be able to cope with them in a healthy way, and the actions that you are doing are creating a negative outcome and a detriment to your health, then they do have worth and they do have validity. And so it is it doesn't necessarily matter how you rate your own stresses. If you are struggling, then they are of worth and they are of value, and everybody's situation is very different. And so so comparing yourselves to others in this way is inaccurate. And then finding the courage to actually get out of this place can be really scary as well. You're going into like unknown territory, and you're putting yourself in this place of vulnerability and exposure, and just not really knowing how to cope with it. It can be incredibly challenging, and you're like, at the moment I'm talking about the effects of stresses, and it can be transferable though, and there's other challenges that you may not actually be willing to face, and it's much easier to bury your head in the sand and ignore these situations, and it takes guts to actually address these things that are stopping you and kind of preventing you from functioning at your optimum kind of self. So it's often these like these past memories that you are holding on to that actually are keeping you in a place, and they're stopping you from moving forwards, and putting some efforts into actually dealing with these past demons. Often they are completely self-inflicted, can in itself be seen as another stress. It is a stress that is well worth pursuing though, and being able to seek the support to help you manage this stress will ultimately enable you to help manage future stresses in a much more healthy way, and in a way that doesn't affect your health and mental well-being to a detrimental effect again. So recognising the validity of your stresses and seeing the importance and finding this courage to accept support and accept that you're not coping with something in the most healthy way is of great benefit to your mental health and your well-being. And as it is often yourself that is the biggest demon in a situation, there's so many different thoughts that come alongside with it, and you can get into this point of just complete fear and procrastination and denial as well, just not accepting that you are unable to cope in the situation. It can just end up holding you in this point of pain and suffering. So being able to see the value and the support in facing these challenges allows you to move forward and gets you out of this trap of the past. And so I hope you can realise that your stresses, if they are causing any sort of detriment to your health and well-being, they do hold validity and they are of worth. It doesn't matter necessarily what your stresses are in comparison to other people's. People deal with things in a lot of different ways, and if you are struggling, then they are of worth and there is validity to your stresses. So I just wanted to make a little note for you there. I hope you can take something useful from this, and thank you very much for listening. If you have any comments at all, if you want to discuss anything further, then I'd love to hear from you. See you later. Bye-bye.